a year before the highly charged 2019 general elections takes place, press freedom in India took a precarious turn. On 2nd April, the Narendra Modi-led government said it had amended the guidelines for accreditation of journalists so as to punish those accused of producing fake news. It all started Monday evening when Smriti Irani's ministry issued an order that listed measures to be taken against journalists who report fake news. The circular said a journalist's accreditation would be suspended immediately on receipt of a complaint. The accreditation will be cancelled for 6 months after first violation, 1 year for second violation, and permanently in case of a third violation. The Press Council of India was to decide on complaints filed on print media reports, and the News Broadcasters Association was to cover television news. However, the government did not define what constituted fake news, and nor did the guidelines clarify who can file complaints and on what grounds. What followed was outrage, as journalists described it as the government's efforts to muzzle the media and questioned the arbitrariness of the move. Journalists pointed out that the notification ignored the non-accredited journalists who far outnumbered those registered with the Press Information Bureau. Smriti Irani on her part took to Twitter to defend the decision. As criticism mounted, the Prime Minister's office clarified the circular would be withdrawn and the issue of fake news would be addressed only by the Press Council of India.
Would you concede that your government has been deeply embarrassed by what's happened on the fake news circular 12 hours after Smriti Irani brought it out in the public domain? Narendra Modi's government, the PMO, decided to withdraw it. Are you red-faced? Are you embarrassed? Has Smriti Irani embarrassed your government and Narendra Modi in particular?
No. You see, we are a democratic country. It's a democratic setup. Ministry of Information Broadcasting Minister took that, she had that idea. So we must have discussed that, internally in the ministry. But when this, it got, to the Prime Minister office, they said, no, this is absolutely, the government, the Prime Minister office and the cabinet, they don't agree with it. Because you see, for us, the freedom of press is sacrosanct. This shows that, this shows democracy in the government. You people, many in the media, many in the country, many in political, they keep on saying, oh, it's a very centralized government, all decisions taken by one man. So now here is an evidence for you. This is now how the government functions. The ministries are autonomous, they take their own decisions, and so when the Prime Minister of it does agree, the cabinet does agree, the ministry concerned is asked to scrap it. That's how a democracy, parliamentary democracy functions.
I thought the BJP spokesman was joking, because this goes against every tenet of cabinet government in a parliamentary democracy. You're supposed to speak of collective responsibility, but if each minister and ministry goes his or own way, then I think what is left of the government. So I think rather than admit that, I think they should admit that it was a serious mistake. It was an outrageous attempt to muzzle the press. There's a lot of fake news out there, and a lot of it comes from the trolls on the social media. I don't want to get into who is behind it, but everybody knows. Some of the ministers make statements which amount to fake news. For example, on science, claiming all kinds of things that are ridiculous. I don't want to name them again. So I think this is a problem, and it's for the media to apply professional standards to minimize fake news on various platforms. It's not, and rather than try to do that, they are targeting the mainstream media as though they are the principal producers of fake news. Fake news comes largely from the social networks, the social media.
The Editors Guild welcomed the Prime Minister's intervention but had a word of caution. It said, the Guild remains deeply disturbed that faith continues to be reposed on the Press Council of India to deliver justice on such issues. The recent reconstitution of the Press Council of India has been done in a manner that gives rise to doubts over the independence of the institution and its ability to play neutral umpire. The Guild's nominees to the Council were disallowed on technical grounds.
We're very glad that the Prime Minister intervened and had the circular withdrawn. And I think the process, the learning in this is that it's very important there are, on an issue like this, which is of great public concern, that you consult everybody. The media is not against it. The media is not the enemy. The media is as deeply concerned about the credibility of all of us are. If I do not have credibility in anything that I write, why should you read me? And if for one fake news, my entire career would be destroyed. So I think the media needs to be responsible, is responsible, and wherever there is violations, we need to come down on them.
The government has, for the time being, desisted from framing rules to punish journalists. But the industry is left wondering what was the need for it in the first place. Though fake news is a real problem, it is spread more through social media than mainstream media. At the end of the day, self-regulation by the fourth estate seems the best way forward. This isn't the first time the press in India faced a barefaced attempt to muzzle its voice. Almost 43 years ago, in June 1975, newspaper offices in Delhi's Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg were thrust into darkness. In a primitive strategy to seek control, the Indira Gandhi government had cut off the power supply to ensure the press was unable to do its job. A day after emergency was declared, the Bombay edition of the Times of India, in its obituary column, carried an entry that decreed the death of democracy. Over the next couple of days, as dissent rose over the government's declaration of emergency, a strict censorship of press was imposed.
The emergency was declared and the complete pandemonium in the Times of India office. People didn't know what to do because we were not used to censorship of the press. And this has been, we were given notices that nothing was to publish unless it had been cleared by the censor. When I discussed it with great length and she wouldn't agree with me at all, she said, there can be no emergency, no press freedom with emergency. They have to toe the line.
And the man monitoring the press was a close aide of Prime Minister Indira's son, Sanjay Gandhi. With almost an enthusiastic zeal, a young V.C. Shukla, the country's information and broadcasting minister, personally monitored the press. Not limiting himself to just newspapers and magazines, but infamously also banning Kishore Kumar from All India Radio and Doordarshan because Kishore had refused to sing at a Congress rally in Bombay. Many mainstream dailies and magazines were censored and banned. The Indian Express and the Statesman left the lead editorial space blank as a mark of protest. Journalists and foreign correspondents were targeted. Some received threats, others were detained for organizing protests. The censorship was removed at the end of the emergency rule in March 1977. Now, the current ruling dispensation seems to be in a complicated relationship with the fourth pillar of democracy. In other firsts, to his credit, Narendra Modi has not held a single press conference during his tenure as the Prime Minister. His predecessor, Manmohan Singh, who is otherwise called Manmohan Singh or the mute Prime Minister by the opposition, used to hold at least 2 press conferences in a year. Modi has also ditched the practice of state heads being accompanied by private media on their official travels. This leaves the media with no chance to cross-question the Prime Minister or to get an insight into the government's work. Instead, he communicates either through his social media or platforms like the Namo app and the radio monologue Man Ki Baat.
ये मेरा सौभाग्य है कि आज मुझे देश के दूर सुदूर गांव में रहने वाले मेरे किसान भाइयों बहनों से बात करने का अवसर मिला है।
Other ministers in his cabinet and his close aide, the BJP President Amit Shah, have also followed suit to stay away from the questions raised by the media. BJP's face for the Northeast in the government, Kiran Rijiju, also found that questioning the police and authorities is not a good culture. He was questioned on an incident of encounters in Bhopal in which 8 SIMI operatives were gunned down.
एनकाउंटर को लेकर सवाल बार-बार उठाया, दिग्विजय सिंह हो, ओवैसी हो, तमाम लोग लेफ्ट पार्टियों ने भी कहा कि जांच होनी चाहिए।
हर चीज को आप उसको डाउट करना, सवाल करना, ये हर चीज में नहीं होता है। बाकी चीज में आप पूछ सकते हैं, लेकिन जो संवेदनशील मामला है उसको ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि बार-बार सवाल इस तरह का मुद्दा को लेकर के खड़ा नहीं करना चाहिए।
In April 2015, the Minister of State for External Affairs and retired General V.K. Singh referred to the media as prostitutes. The term soon became acceptable in political parlance.
The press has to be a watchdog. The role of the press is to be a representative of the public, asking questions and saying why you're doing this, why you're not doing that. And that, if you start tripping on that, then you're impinging on press freedom. And I'm glad the Prime Minister has said on many occasions that he believes in the freedom of the press. We believe that not only should you have words in it, but action should also demonstrate it in any aspect of government, not just his own, the running of his own ministry or the Prime Ministership. It's right across the spectrum.
There is some more breaking news that is coming in as we speak. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has issued an advisory to all television channels.
It is not just the Indian media that has been on the receiving end. In 2015, a documentary based on the Nirbhaya rape case, India's Daughter, made its way to the TV screens in the UK, but the Indian government chose to keep it away from the Indian TV audiences. The ban sparked a stir worldwide.
What those people said is what we need to concentrate on.
Discussion already ho gaya, maine isliye
no, very important is that sexual harassment is and against women is continuously.
जिस डॉक्यूमेंट्री को लेकर केवल यह सदन ही नहीं, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया हो, इसके लिए पूरी तरह से प्रिकॉशन लिया जाना चाहिए।
2 years later, in June 2017, 3 documentaries were banned from the Kerala Film Festival. The Ministry of I&B denied censor exemption to the documentaries dealing with the unrest in Kashmir, the suicide of Rohit Vemula and JNU protests without giving any reason. The ban's plea was not limited to documentaries. A leading Hindi news channel was also slapped with a ban for 1 day. The Ministry of I&B found it guilty of violating the Cable TV Act 1995 and claimed that the channel received sensitive information in its reportage of the Pathankot terror attack. The ban was taken back after the channel resorted to the judiciary.